Orale! Bienvenidos and welcome to the Familia FFB podcast. This is your host, Jorge Martin and Familia. We are on YouTube. Please, please, please. You guys have been coming through. You guys have been coming in. This NFL Insider Series has been bringing us more subscribers. But hey, if you haven't subscribed yet, please give us that thumbs up. And you know what? Let's get it. Let's hit that subscribe button, por favor. And Familia, we are a proud member of the Fantasy Points Media Group. And Familia, it's just it's fantastic. You know, this is the time to get ready for your fantasy football drafts. You got some of the great minds out there. You got Joe Dolan, you got John Hansen, Graham Barfield, Tom Brawley, Scott Barrett, Wes Huber. I mean, it's just some of the heavy hitters in the fantasy sports industry all in one site. When you use the promo code Familia22 or Familia 22 if you want to use it in Spanish, you get 10% off. So get that, use that promo code, go to fantasypoints.com. And Familia, you know what? We've rounded third, headed for home on this NFL Insider Series. And I'm proud and happy to bring back, I mean, one of the very first people to come on this NFL Insider Series last year. My man, Cam Inman. He is, a longtime writer for, you've been covering the 49ers, covering Bay Area sports for quite a while. He covers them for the San Jose Mercury News. He covers them for the East Bay Times. I mean, his handle at Cam Inman on Twitter is one of the ones that you have to follow, and at 49ers.cam. That's another guy. You know, on Instagram, you got to follow him. Cam Camarón, as we called you last year. ¿Cómo estás? Welcome. Bienvenido.
Muy bien. In fact, yesterday when the 49ers offensive linemen were signing autographs, I went up to Alfredo Gutierrez, the Tijuana, Mexico player, and because I did a story on him last year, and he was happy to see me, and I gave him a little Spanish. We had a good back and forth briefly. I forgot a lot of my Spanish, but he's doing well. And I actually asked the offensive line coach today just how he's doing. He's a project player, but he's getting better. So it's just fun to check in once in a while. It's part of the development stuff, so it's all good.
Good. Hey, you know what? They got to keep them around so you can keep practicing your Spanish and get better. I mean, I don't anticipate us having to do one completely in Spanish, but you never know. If you ever,
listen, the Niners are playing down in Mexico City in a few months, so we don't have much time here. We got to ramp this back up.
Hey, you know what?
My seventh grade teacher, Senora Rodriguez, should be upset with me. Although I don't have chicle en la boca currently, so I'm okay.
No chicle en la boca, por favor. No. You'll end up with it on your forehead or somewhere on your nose or something like that. Oh, mi amigo, you know what? It's I know when we first talked about coming on, you mentioned doing it now because things seem to be much more settled with 49ers. You got Deebo Samuel. He got his bag. He got paid, and I've got some good questions about him. A big question about him. Trey Lance is officially entrenched as the starter. So
correct.
I think we start with him. He's the talent is there. I think every time you get to interview him as much as anybody. So hearing him talk is just wonderful. The fantasy football community is excited about another dual threat quarterback. He's getting drafted right there at the tail end of being, like one of the top one of the
top 12 or so.
Yeah. So he's like top 12 or 13 right now.
Yeah.
What's the payoff going to be this year? What are we looking at?
I think that's fair. Obviously it's a gamble because nobody's really seen him do anything much outside of 2 starts last year, but let's take it away from Lance for a second. Is this offense productive with the coach making the calls? Kyle Shanahan, very much so. Do they have a talented supporting cast around him? You got Deebo, you got Kittle, Brandon Aiyuk's been the camp MVP. You got great running backs behind you. And then you have a defense that's going to give you shorter fields. Then you get to the quarterback. Okay, is he any good? He looks pretty good. He doesn't look perfect. I think what we've seen in training camp is probably what we'll see during the season, where he will make a couple eye-opening plays that are really, really good. And then there'll be 1 or 2 uh-ohs. Whereas with Jimmy Garoppolo, there would be usually 1 or 2 uh-ohs, and rarely would you say, oh, wow, what a great play. Jimmy made his great plays in his day and won a lot of games for him. So it's not to discredit Jimmy. I'm just saying Trey has this extra element of playmaker explosiveness, and then you mix in the ability to run with the ball, which he's really fit well for it. He's got really nimble legs. He's a different, like Niner fans will try to relate this with Kaepernick back in 2012 to 14 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Different, totally different quarterbacks. Trey's does have a strong arm like Cap, but he's got a much better touch. He appears to read defenses better. And when he runs, he's not a straight line runner like Cap was. He is more of a wiggle. He'll find the spots and slither through stuff. And but he also has this persona where everybody's buying into him. Following Jimmy Garoppolo is not an easy act. He was a very well liked leader. So how's the team going to react around him? Will the coach let him loose? And I think Kyle will. I think he's like, look, I've been sitting on this kid for a year. He's going to make us play 11 on 11 football. Teams aren't going to be able to sit an extra defender back. They're going to have to account for Lance, put a spy on him or something. So I'm expecting, it's hard to project numbers, but I would, is he a 4,000-yard passer? They haven't had one of those in the Niners in a long time. He possibly could be. Is he going to be a 500-yard rusher? Sure, he could be. I mean, what do we say? Like 40 yards a game would put you over the top?
30 yards a game.
30, absolutely. I think absolutely. So he's going to put up a lot of points, fantasy points. So, yeah, I taking him that, he could be like the number 1 quarterback next year, or he could be the number 25th quarterback. We don't really know. So that's why you're saying, is he a 12, 13? I don't see why not. The competition you're going to be going with, you're going to go, well, this guy's probably okay. He's in this offense. But if you look at Lance, you go, man, there's an upshot there where it could be a lot. It could be a value pick there at 12.
And that's the thing with him. I mean, he's got the upside, and I mean, you pointed out everything that you would want a quarterback to have. He has at his disposal, and I mean, it's just everything. Yeah, he's well set up. Got that cannon for an arm. I remember he reminded me a lot of Steve McNair when I watched his college tape. Reminded me a lot of him. But you look at him and you kind of look at two possibilities, like Jalen Hurts last year or Lamar Jackson, his breakout year, his second year. And I could see something in the middle. I could see something in the middle where and Hurts was a top 10 quarterback last year. So I don't know.
I think we saw Jalen Hurts play last year. I think he's a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts is. I think he's more of an all around. I think he'll be a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts.
Oh man, well, you heard it here, Familia. You know what? All the overheating, you just put up the temperature on him in the fantasy community, Cam. So
yeah, it's not. So are the 49ers.
The next one is help me look in the crystal ball on the running backs. Yeah. Elijah Mitchell. Yeah.
I mean, so Elijah Mitchell's coming off a really strong rookie year where he almost ran for 1,000 yards. He missed, I think, 5 or 6 games. He got injured a lot.
Yeah.
But they loved him because he would play through some of those injuries. So they really trust him that he's going to be their number 1 running back. But at the same time, this offense has not had a back-to-back leading rusher under Shanahan from one season to the next. So is it because of injury? Most likely. Is there somebody that's going to take his job? None of these guys are like showing that they're better than him. So I think, through camp at least, he's going to, he missed most of the offseason program because he was coming off a knee procedure. But in camp, they have let him go from day one. They're giving him a lot of carries. He's looked okay. He hasn't looked great. And the thing that also worries me fantasy-wise is they do have a lot of other running backs. They drafted Ty Davis Price in the 3rd round after drafting Trey Sermon in the 3rd round last year. And then you still have Jeff Wilson Jr., who's had his moments the last few years with the Niners. Those are your main 4 guys. And I mean, anybody that they put in this offense at running back is going to succeed. And then remember, you have Trey Lance who's going to run the ball some too. So that may steal some of those running back carries as well. But you also do have Kyle Juszczyk, the best fullback in the NFL, blocking, and they're paying him a lot of money to block. So the running game, I think I think it could be bigger this year than it's been in any other year under Shanahan. They have so many running backs. You have a healthy Elijah Mitchell, and you have some good young legs that you can put in there, including Lance's.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, when you add in Lance, I mean, yeah, you could be talking about like one of the top 3 teams in rushing in the
Oh, I
NFL.
think they will be. Yeah, I think easily they should be.
Yeah, it's a
But
Shanahan.
their offensive line, it's a little iffy. But run game wise, it won't be so much. Run game wise, they'll be sturdy because they're a little bit more powerful. I don't want to say than last year, but they're a bigger bunch. Like they're bigger mass probably on that offensive line than in years past.
And so, is there a pecking order behind Elijah Mitchell developing?
Okay, so I mean, in camp at this point in camp, they're still deferring to basically experience, right? Which means it'd be Jeff Wilson Jr. 2, then Sermon or Hasty Sermon, and then Ty Davis Price, and then Jordan Mason be like for your 40th round steal in fantasy because he's an undrafted rookie, and those guys always do well under Shanahan, and he looks really good in camp. But if you're going to say going into a game, who'd I expect them to do? I'd expect Mitchell would start and get 60% of the carries. And then after that, you'd have a mix, maybe maybe Jeff Wilson Jr. would maybe get 20%. And then it would be between Trey Sermon and Ty Davis Price. And I want to say Ty Davis Price should be the guy, because they draft him in the 3rd round. He's a young legs. He's a big body guy. So he'd be like a nice thunder lightning kind of thing. That's how it's supposed to work. But at the same time, I'm having a little hard time buying totally into it. And I think they like Trey Sermon a lot, how he's doing in camp. I mean, this time of year where they blow a lot of smoke and praise everybody. But he's had a pretty decent camp this year. So fantasy wise, RB2, RB3, RB4 among those guys, it's risky. It's a gamble. It's just kind of one of those, well, I may as well take it because Mitchell might get hurt based on last year.
Yeah, that's the one thing. It's just kind of when you're in the 10th round plus, the latter rounds, you're kind of like, okay, get that.
You can't really go wrong though with getting a Shanahan running back. It's like it's worth taking the flyer on, because there's a great chance this kid, any one of those guys. I would probably take Ty Davis Price over Trey Sermon based on history, since Sermon didn't get much action last year.
Okay.
So I'm flip-flopping. I don't know. Let's see how they do in the preseason, the first couple of games, because those are going to be the guys carrying the rock, because Elijah Mitchell ain't going to be near that field, I would think.
And by the way, how much do you think Trey Lance is going to get in preseason? Maybe one game?
Maybe a quarter.
Maybe a quarter, yeah.
There's no reason to play him. I mean, yes, you need to get him reps, but if he gets hurt and you've already gotten rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, it's going to be terrible. You cannot afford to have him hurt. There's no reason to be playing him.
Put him in bubble wrap.
I mean, people say he's going to need the reps. Of course he needs the reps, but you're not going to get the reps in preseason are way different than regular season games. So it doesn't matter. His best actions are going to come in a couple of weeks when we're in Minnesota for joint practices. So
okay.
That's where he will get his preseason work and get really tested. Although I don't think the Vikings defense is too great, but who knows?
Hey, maybe that'll overheat him some more if he has a big game there. Well, one guy who's gotten overheated, we got the what, Deebo. Yeah, he got paid. We exchanged some Twitter messages there. When I was asking you what was going to happen, and it kind of worked out the way you predicted. So now let's look in the crystal ball. Now let's get a full running back room. Are we still going to see him take them? Are we going to see maybe 1 or 2 or 3 handoffs, or is it going to be jet sweeps where he doesn't, or I formation? What are we looking at?
They do those little flips, like 6-inch passes to him in the backfield. Also, that counts as like 50 yards after the catch kind of thing, even though whatever. I don't think he's going to be able to replicate last year, 1,400 receiving yards and 365 rushing yards. Yes, he is still the offensive catalyst, probably more so than Kittle, but he's not going to run for as many yards because he doesn't need to. Most of that last year came out of necessity at some point in the second half of the season, because their running backs were hurt, because Mitchell was hurt so much, and if they're in a situation where they really need that spark, then obviously they'll give it to him. He There was reports in the offseason that he was complaining about his usage, and he said that's not true. If there was any complaints, it was just pay me more because of that usage. I don't think they necessarily did. So, um, and him and Lance might take a little bit of while to kind of get on the same page because he missed all the offseason time with Lance.
Mm.
But he's obviously one of the best talents in the NFL. The guy, when he has the ball in his hands, runs violently, passionately, uh, the way Anquan Bolden and Terrell Owens did with ferocity in 49er uniforms. So he's still going to be highly productive. I just don't think he's going to match the same numbers as last year.
Yeah, that's a tough number to match. I mean, he won me a league, so I actually picked him after Trey Sermon, 4 picks after Trey Sermon. So got lucky on that one. So, and you mentioned the camp MVP, Brandon Aiyuk, and you talked about, you mentioned it. It looked like he was clearly in the doghouse early last year. And he's gotten a lot of work with Lance so far.
Yeah.
So could we be looking at a step forward? Because man, he is a yak monster when he is on the field.
Yeah, he'll be 1,000-yard receiver this year. There's no doubt. He is. It's not just that he and Lance have a good connection. It's the way Brandon's playing. He's making contested catches in practice daily, short, intermediate, and he's got the speed to go deep. He's fiery. He's out of the doghouse because he knows what he has to do now. And then guess what? He could be up for a contract next year too. Although the Niners will have a 5th-year option they can exercise with him because he was a first-round pick, whereas Deebo wasn't. But Brandon wants it. He wants to be an elite wide receiver, and he got in a fight this week in practice because the defense is just trying to bring it out of him. And it's just one of those things where it's like it looks too good to be true. The first week of camp of how productive he's been, but it's also the case in the offseason program. So arrow up, stock up on Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah, someone please get in his ear. Don't take on Fred Warner. So someone needs to get in his ear and tell him that.
I don't know. All the defenders were pretty proud that he took him on too, because it just showed that he's got that dog in him, that he's willing to stick up for offensive guys, that he's not a pushover. So, a couple of years ago they had Dante Pettis, and that was the opposite. I mean, Dante wouldn't catch passes, contested catches, and the contact over the middle. He got this reputation. He was a really nice guy, but Shanahan couldn't tolerate it anymore and unloaded him.
So, when it comes to the passing game, we're going to jump into Kittle because I don't think we see any other wide receivers who are maybe possibly draftable in fantasy this year.
Mm-hmm.
Are there probably maybe somebody
for the Niners?
Yeah.
I'll just give you this. It's 3A, 3B, 3C. It's Ray McLeod, former Steelers, mostly a punt returner. Juwan Jennings came on strong last year as the number 3. He's had a quiet camp, but he is a big body guy. So he's not bad for taking a flyer on, because he'll be a guy that a bigger target that Lance can look for in third down or red zones. That he'd probably get more points than McLeod. And then Danny Gray's a rookie that has the speed. That's the downfield threat that they haven't had in years. All 3 of those guys are worth taking a flyer on. Especially if this offense produces the way it could. But again, if it's a run-based offense, how much are you going to get out of them? Again, when you're in a big league and you need, you're looking for somebody that nobody else is, then just maybe stash those names away.
Yeah, I did get Danny Gray on a couple of dynasty teams where, we did the all college draft. So I got him in the latter parts. So, okay. Kittle, talented a guy, maybe the best tight end in the game. I know for fantasy, I mean, he's wonderful those weeks he blows up, and then there's the weeks where they put him concentrating on blocking. It is more the same this year that we're looking at, because he's so good when he's
I actually think he's going to be more. I think he's going to have a big year receiving wise, and part of it is you have a young quarterback, and what's a young quarterback's best friend is a tight end. When you have the best tight end in the league, you're going to use him. And he had 900 yards last year, and he still missed 3 games and was not really healthy all season long. He had calf issues. I think, yes, they needed to keep him in to help block. That also, didn't strain his calf as much. So I think George could have a pretty big year. He had 900 yards last year, I think 6 touchdowns, and that the 6 touchdowns were a career high. But it kind of put everybody on the radar that, yeah, let's get this guy the ball more near the end zone because he wants to score. He and Deebo have that I'm going all out mentality, and George's stock as a wide receiver should be back up this year, even though his blocking skills are still unmatched too.
Yeah, he's great. I've picked him up on a couple teams, and it's hard to, because that talent is there. And one thing I'm also looking at is that game week 17, which is championship week. They're playing the Raiders, who may not be the best team on defense this year. So it could be fun. I'm getting some Niners because of that. My LA Rams fans are going to give me a hard time for that, but that's fine. I want to win.
That's right. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. Selfish.
Yeah, exactly. I won with Deebo last year, my big money league. So I have no shame in that. No shame.
Hey, tight end wise, also outside of Kittle, I don't know. If you want like a late round one, because Dwelly would be the number 2 tight end, or Charlie Warner was the number 2 tight end last year, but Warner was more of a blocking tight end, and Dwelly was more of a receiving one. There's a kid in camp named Tanner Hudson that was on the Bucks practice squad a couple of years ago. He may have won a ring, and he was on the Niners practice squad last year. He's caught, I think, every ball that's been thrown to him in camp, and I think he's caught about 11 passes. So the tight ends coach is high on him. He's very good hands. So kind of a sneaky thing. Just throwing that name out there.
Keep an eye on him. I'll keep an eye on him. So I wanted to ask, you touched on the offensive line a little bit. Obviously the tackles, when they're healthy, are solid. You mentioned that there's some, there could be some changeover.
There will be newness. Yes.
Yeah. The newness. Yeah. Where is, so the PFF has them ranked number 14 right now. So let
me ask you that. Well, I mean, offensive line wise, once you get out of the top 3, most of the NFL is in the same boat, except for maybe the bottom 3. The offensive line play in this league is, it's not great just because colleges don't groom guys for the NFL game. It's just a different style. And then you get these college tackles that come in are converted guards in the NFL. So it's the Niners are going young on the interior, and because they've spent a lot of money on their tackles, and it could be rough. But again, it comes down to having a very smart play caller, knowing how to minimize whatever deficiencies you have, so that exposure is not going to kill you.
Love it. Defensive side, just the last one real quick on the defensive side. This was one of the best teams against the run last year, got better against the pass. I mean, obviously some injuries played a part. Tell me.
Number 1. They could be the number 1 defense in the league. I'm not a homer. Nick Bosa is healthy. And Nick Bosa, in my opinion, I think Nick Bosa could be the best defensive player in the league this year. He's got a tremendous defensive front. He's on probably the best linebacker core in the league with Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Azeez Al-Shaair, if they're healthy. It's like any NFL team, if healthy. But also the secondary is vastly improved, probably just because of the addition of Travarius Ward out of Kansas City is really freaking good. I mean, in camp, he's making all sorts of plays, but you could just see how he is as a corner. He is sticky, aggressive, got great range, which uplifts the whole cornerback core that I haven't seen like that since Sherman came, back in 18-19. And that really bodes well for the whole defense. If you got all 3 layers of the defense, that's going to help Trey Lance out a lot, help the team out a lot. And I mean, that they could be a number 1 team, number 1 defense. Yeah.
Oh, Yeah, that one, they really showed up there at the end, especially that game against the Packers in the
Well,
playoffs.
and and they also, like in most of these fantasy things, it's special teams factors in on that too. And the Niners special teams stunk last year, so their ratings are going to be down this year. But they got a new special teams coordinator. You have a familiar cast of specialists in Robbie Gould, Mitch Wishnowsky, and the same long snapper. Um, so they're going to be improved on special teams too. And you brought in Ray McLeod as a legit NFL punt returner. Guy fumbled a lot in Pittsburgh, but he also fielded more punts than anybody in the NFL. So, uh, yeah, I mean that's a very good pick if you're looking defense, special teams, going Niners.
Awesome. So, Camarón, last year
Yeah.
you gave me one of my favorite, just kind of like rundowns on favorite Mexican food. Anything, any new things, or any current favorites that you got going on right now?
Hmm. Um, no, but one of my daughters is going to go to school in San Diego, so I need recommendations on San Diego because was it Puesto that they had at the Padres game? Very good tacos, but there's a burrito joint when I go now to San Diego and Point Loma that we always go to. We've done this like 3 trips in a row now. It's kind of tucked in into a strip mall. That's delicious. So
You know who we got to put. You know what? I'm going to put the word out to our compa Fernando Ramirez.
yeah.
I know
Oh
he
yeah, yeah,
because he's
yeah,
I know he's in South Bend right now, but he's going to have
yeah.
enough things. So I'm going to be like, when I put this out tomorrow, when I put this out on Friday, August 5th. Yeah, I'm gonna give a shout out to Fernando. So
Awesome.
get him. He's struggling to find good Mexican food in South Bend. So we got to make
I
sure to
love it.
get
Oh well, yeah, yeah. I can see that.
have him live vicariously through you.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome.
All
Well,
right. Well, hey, thanks for having me on, man.
you're always a compa. You're always a compa. Just one last thing. You're everybody make sure to follow Cam's work at Cam Inman on Twitter, at 49ers punto Cam on Instagram, and obviously his work at the San Jose Mercury News and East Bay Times Familia. Make sure you're going to fantasypoints.com and use that promo code Familia22 and get that 10% off. And you can find me at Jorge Martin 17. All my content goes out there, Familia FFB on Facebook and Instagram, and familiafb.com for original content. Otra vez, to our invitado, Cam, muchas gracias. And everybody, todos somos familia. Salud.